former Chief Justice Mogoeng Mogoeng has apologized unconditionally for becoming involved in a political controversy. A reminder for you, in 2020, in a webinar, Mogoeng said as a Christian, he was under obligation to love Israel and pray for Jerusalem's peace. He was found to have been in breach of the Code of Judicial Conduct, and he was ordered to apologize, a ruling which he appealed and then lost. And now he has publicly issued his apology. Let's get you some analysis on this now. We're joined by Africa for Palestine's Executive Director, Muhammed Desai, who joined us via our video link this morning. And Muhammed, once again, thanks so much for your time. It reminds me of when someone apologizes to you and says, I apologize that you feel this way. That kind of apology that doesn't really go all of the way. In the sense of Mogoeng Mogoeng, he says he apologizes for being involved in a political controversy. How do you read it?
Hi, Michelle. Thanks so much for having this discussion and for hosting us here this morning. As Africa for Palestine, whilst noting the context in which you place the former Chief Justice Mogoeng's apology quite correctly so, we still nevertheless accept this apology, and we think that it's even more significant that the former Chief Justice was compelled to make this apology. He was forced essentially, and he's quite correct to say so, kicking and screaming to the apology table. We see this as a victory over fanaticism and over ego. We see this as a victory for the rule of law, and it's a good day for the South African judiciary generally speaking, because it shows that nobody is above the law. Even if they may have certain warped views, they will be forced to be in line within the Judicial Code of Conduct.
So as Africa for Palestine, you're happy about the fact that he has conceded to being forced to apologize, even if the apology itself, perhaps some might say, doesn't go all the way?
We accept the apology. We think that it's important that the delineation and the separation between the powers of the state have been reaffirmed by the Judicial Services Commission, and specifically the Judicial Code, the Judicial Conduct Committee, that the judiciary is not meant to interfere in the foreign policy or in other policy matters of other arms of the state. The one qualm that we have, the one problem that we have with the Chief Justice's apology is that he still tries to insinuate that our complaint that we had lodged with the Judicial Services Commission was an attack against his faith and against his belief in Christianity. This is utterly false, and it's really unfortunate that he is perpetuating this sort of insinuation. The truth of the matter is that we took him, we laid the complaint based on the fact that he was violating the code and that he was entering into political controversy. And his continued conflation with the biblical land of Israel and the modern state of Israel with the Israelites of the Bible and the Israelis of the modern Israeli regime is really unfortunate on the one hand, and also on the other hand, a great insult to the indigenous Palestinian Christian community. So other than that conflation that the former Chief Justice is making, we as an organization are closing this matter. We are welcoming and accepting the Chief Justice's apology.
Yeah, for our viewers who perhaps are wondering what you're talking about there in those comments you're making, Muhammad, this is part of the former Chief Justice's apology here. I'm going to read it verbatim. He says, I'm very thankful that I've not been ordered to renounce God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit and my faith in him. I've not been ordered to renounce the Holy Bible. I've not been ordered to renounce prayer. I have not been ordered to renounce my love for Israel and Palestine and my love for Jews and Palestinians, as well as my love for all people. And this is where what you've just described, Muhammad, as what appears to be the former Chief Justice's conflation between, as you say, biblical Israel and Israel of today.
It's really unfortunate. I mean, for such a learned person to be making such a mistake is really unlikely, and therefore it would seem as if the former Chief Justice is deliberately making this, is deliberately confusing these two concepts, and in the process doing a disservice to the real issue. The fact that the state of Israel was only created in 1940. The state of Israel that we are referring to was only created in 1948. Some of the first followers of Jesus Christ, coming from the holy town of Bethlehem, being of a Palestinian origin. And so you're quite correct, Michelle. That's exactly the paragraph that we're referring to in his apology and generally in his submissions that were made to the JSC. This insinuation had continued.
Because there was never going to be a situation, Muhammad, where, as the Chief Justice says, he would be ordered to renounce his God.
There would never have been a situation in which the JSC would have even entertained such a complaint from civil society, because this is completely unacceptable. Any justice or any judge in our country is allowed to her or his beliefs. However, there are certain regulations regarding expression and regarding which opinions you're allowed to express in the public domain. This is just like the kind of restriction that, for example, doctors may have. Doctors have the right to freedom of expression. They have the right to freedom of opinion. But on the other hand, they are not allowed to divulge any of the information that the patients give them because of the Code of Conduct that they signed regarding patient-doctor confidentiality. Likewise, in this case, the judge, the Chief Justice, together with all other justices of the Constitutional Court and all other judges of our country, had signed a judicial code of conduct stating that they would not enter into political controversy, they would not lend their name to any untoward agendas. And in this case, the Chief Justice, the JSCC, has found did actually contravene that code of conduct.
Yeah. Muhammad, as you say, given some of the areas where the apology, despite some of the areas where the apology might seem wanting, as your organization, Africa for Palestine, you're still willing to accept it, and you now consider this matter closed?
Absolutely. For us, this is a good day for South Africa's judiciary as well as for Palestinian activists. For us, the message remains clear that South Africa, the South African state, and the majority of South African people are in support of international law and human rights. Even if Mogoeng does not support this, our government does support it, and that he can't contradict it using his personal opinions by entering into the foreign policy realm.
Muhammed Desai, let me thank you for your time this morning. He's the director at Africa for Palestine. Some reaction for you there to that statement released yesterday by former Chief Justice Mogoeng Mogoeng, where he unconditionally apologizes for utterances he made during a webinar with the Jerusalem Post that happened in 2020, I believe.